I want you to picture something. Like, have you ever been looking out your window or maybe walking into your secure office building and you've just noticed someone um, lingering?
Yeah, it's kind of hanging around.
Right, exactly. Like maybe they are tying their shoe just a bit too slowly, or maybe they look a little lost, checking their phone at the edge of the property line. And you probably just dismissed it instantly, right? Just background noise.
Well, I mean, it's entirely human nature to just filter those visual inputs out. We naturally categorize mundane, repetitive behaviors as harmless.
Yeah, we have to.
Right. If we didn't, we would spend our entire day in this debilitating state of high alert, like treating every single delivery driver or pedestrian like a hostile threat.
Which would be exhausting. But our mission for this deep dive is to completely decode that quote unquote normal behavior. We are going to look at how intelligence operatives and criminal elements use those exact mundane actions as tactical camouflage.
It's a fascinating area to look into.
It really is. And today, we've gotten our hands on a highly confidential internal security compendium. It's titled Security Brief Handbook.pdf, and it covers 6 months of operational intelligence.
Specifically logged between December 2025 and May 2026, right?
Exactly, and it is laser focused on behavioral markers and residential security. Okay, let's unpack this because going through this intelligence, it becomes very clear that the line between a harmless bystander and a hostile scout is practically invisible.
It really is. And I think the most effective way to approach this intelligence is to view it not just as a static list of defensive protocols, but as a deeply fascinating psychological study of human deception.
Like studying how we're tricked.
Exactly. This material explores the mechanics of how adversaries manipulate our social norms, our manners, and just our basic human psychology to essentially hide in plain sight. They are, quite literally, weaponizing our own social conditioning against us.
That is wild. And to really understand the mechanics of how a hidden surveillance operation begins, we have to look at the very edge of the property line, right?
The primary vehicle gate.
Right, the gate. Because this is the absolute first point of contact between a secure perimeter and the outside world. And the intelligence outlines this concept from Module 1 that I found incredibly striking. They call it disruptive pretexting.
Yeah, disruptive pretexting is a brilliant, albeit pretty unsettling, tactical application of psychology. The goal of an operative at this stage is to gather critical, structural, and technical data about the perimeter.
But without crossing the line.
Right, without ever actually crossing the threshold and triggering a formal security response.
So there is this highly specific incident logged in here from May 13th, 2026. A security patrol observed an individual dressed in the standard clothing of a local day laborer, right? And he's loitering right near the primary gate infrastructure.
Just standing right in the sensitive zone.
Exactly. And to justify standing in that highly sensitive zone, this individual was spitting a chewed regional tobacco mix pan masala right at the base of the gate.
Which is pretty gross.
It's a massive breach of site cleanliness. I mean, anyone observing that would immediately think, that's disgusting. But the intel explicitly classifies this nuisance behavior as an underlying intelligence gathering maneuver.
Oh, absolutely.
And they track other gross deceptive distraction tactics in Module 4, too, like an individual aggressively digging in their nose to deflect suspicion. It's like a magician's misdirection, right? By doing something socially awkward or outright gross, the operative forces the observer, the security guard, to look away in disgust.
What's fascinating here is the tactical logic behind that induced reaction, because the operative is intentionally manipulating the guard's cognitive timeline.
How so?
Well, when a guard sees someone spitting or picking their nose, the immediate brain response isn't to classify them as a hostile reconnaissance unit.
Right. It's just, ew.
Exactly. The response is visceral disgust or sheer annoyance. And that psychological pivot creates a socially understood pause. It delays the guard from issuing an immediate move-along order or from logging the individual's presence as a security anomaly.
So the guard is busy processing the social faux pas, completely missing the actual security threat.
Yeah. And in the world of pre-operational surveillance, those few delayed seconds are absolute gold. While the operative appears to be engaged in this low-stakes nuisance behavior, they are running a rapid vulnerability assessment.
Like taking mental notes.
Much more than that. They are measuring the mechanical realities of the perimeter. They are calculating the gate cycle speed, assessing whether the access control is fully automated or if it requires manual guard verification.
Wow.
And they are scanning for technical sensor placements, things like hidden ground loops in the pavement or photoelectric beam arrays.
It's all about masking the true intent. The intel also highlights this thing called the downward gaze pretext. Like an individual bends down to tie their shoe or rummage through a messenger bag. Physically, that action forces the head to tilt down.
Which completely changes their profile.
Right. It perfectly conceals facial features from high-angle CCTV cameras mounted above the gate. But more importantly, it masks the true direction of the operative's gaze. They could be memorizing the keypad entry code or tracking the camera's panning arc while pretending to, I don't know, search for a dropped set of keys.
It's the ultimate weaponization of the mundane. I mean, the gate is engineered to keep unauthorized threats out,
Yeah.
but these disruptive pretexts allow an adversary to essentially strip mine that same gate for operational data without ever attempting a breach.
So, if studying the gate is the first vulnerability, the logical escalation is finding a way to make the gate completely irrelevant.
Bypassing the perimeter altogether.
Right. And Module 2 pivots to what it calls the insider as a proxy threat model, the enemy inside. So, we're talking about temporary staff, the housekeepers, third-party maintenance contractors.
People you let in.
Yeah, people who already possess legitimate access to the interior perimeter.
And the psychology of surveillance becomes incredibly intimate here, because these familiar faces provide the most effective veil for pre-operational reconnaissance. An adversary doesn't need to risk a physical breach if they can simply co-opt the person who cleans the floors.
Or trims the hedges.
Right, they
Yeah.
just have them conduct the visual mapping for them.
And the red flags for this proxy behavior are incredibly specific, like ocular surveillance, for example. Instead of focusing their visual attention on the floor they are sweeping, a compromised housekeeper will perform intensive, systematic visual sweeps of the property boundaries.
Looking where they shouldn't be looking.
Right. They will stare intently at door frames and window latches. And then there is counting and occupancy mapping. So deliberately tracking resident locations, mapping out the feeding and walking schedules of the family guard dogs.
Identifying high-value assets.
Yeah. And figuring out which specific windows correspond to perpetually empty guest rooms. They even exploit the soft perimeters, using overgrown shrubs along a compound wall to mask peeping behaviors while pretending to prune the branches. It's highly systematic.
Let me challenge that dynamic for a moment, though, just playing devil's advocate. We're talking about temporary staff and domestic workers. How can a security director, or even just a homeowner, accurately differentiate between a temporary worker who is just spacing out on the job, or maybe just naturally nosy about a wealthy client's home, versus someone who is actively conducting hostile pre-operational reconnaissance? That feels like a massive analytical leap.
It's a very fair point. But the intelligence addresses that exact ambiguity through a mechanism it calls the economic indicator.
Okay, what is that?
You have to analyze the incentive structures at play. In high vigilance, secure residential zones, domestic workers and regular contractors are typically stable and highly compensated relative to their market.
They have good jobs.
Right. And human behavioral modeling dictates that a rational, well-paid employee will not casually risk their employment stability or risk law enforcement entanglement merely to satisfy idle curiosity about a locking mechanism on a secondary window.
So the risk-to-reward ratio for simply being a little nosy just doesn't add up. Precisely. If a trusted insider is exhibiting these highly structured pre-operational behaviors, the systematic camera mapping, latch checking, occupancy logging, the economic indicator mechanism suggests they are heavily influenced by substantial external factors.
They aren't just bored.
No, they are not merely distracted. They are either casing the property for an internal personal burglary, or, far more likely in these threat environments, they are acting as an intelligence gatherer for a third-party criminal element. Their access has been compromised or incentivized by an outside threat.
So we know who is watching. We've got the loiterers utilizing pretexts at the perimeter and the proxies operating inside the house. And we know what structural and technical details they are looking for. But Module 3 details how they organize this gathered data.
The timeline of the operation.
Right. They don't just grab a few random details and initiate a breach. They build a highly structured attack profile over time. And this is where the methodology feels incredibly chilling to me. The brief breaks down the exact anatomy of a 72-hour casing operation.
Yes, the structured reconnaissance and pattern logs. This transition marks the shift from casual, opportunistic observation to a highly coordinated tactical operation.
Right. So I was looking at the chronological log of a coordinated visual inspection sweep from May 5th to May 7th, 2026. And what immediately jumps out isn't necessarily what they are doing, but the sheer speed of it.
It's shockingly
It
fast.
is. On May 5th, an initial perimeter sweep focusing on primary home entry vectors is logged between 8.05.20 a.m. and 8.05.40 a.m. They classify that as a medium threat. That is a 20-second exposure window.
Barely enough time to blink.
Right. And then later that day, stationary tracking of internal occupant movements is executed at 12.58 p.m. in an 8-second window.
Notice the extreme brevity of those operational windows. The adversary is minimizing their physical exposure time to reduce the probability of interdiction while simultaneously maximizing their data collection rate.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Still, on May 5th, they conduct a secondary check of the fixed camera fields of view and vehicle placements at exactly 1.22.42 p.m. They flag this as a high threat.
And pay attention to that timestamp.
Right, because the very next day, May 6th, the operatives return to conduct a structural integrity analysis of the rear compound wall, specifically hunting for structural gaps. And the time logged for that return visit, 1.22.45 p.m.
3 seconds.
Exactly 3 seconds of difference from the previous day's visit. I mean, this is not a crime of opportunity. It's a literal algorithm. They are testing the property's defense routines and guard shift rotations down to the absolute second.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that micro-level precision is the entire point of the 72-hour casing cycle. The intelligence highlights this as high pattern consistency.
Why is that so crucial?
Well, returning at identical times is an operational necessity for mapping household routines and security vulnerabilities. If you need to verify that a security detail rotates or a specific guard takes a meal break at 1.14 p.m. every single day, you must observe that specific time slot on multiple consecutive days to confirm the pattern is actually actionable.
That makes total sense.
Furthermore, the log highlights a return visit on May 7th at 5.44 p.m.
Ah, the sunset transition mapping.
Exactly. They are targeting window layouts and interior lighting during evening household transitions. Operatives must map the exact moment the ambient exterior light shifts and the interior lights turn on.
Because it changes what you can see.
Completely. That lighting inversion completely changes the visibility profile from the outside. It turns the home into a fishbowl. That 72-hour window provides the adversary with the baseline normal, the confirmation of their initial data, and the final verification of operational gaps.
It is remarkably methodical, but, executing that kind of precise high-stakes reconnaissance over 3 days, like having to perfectly time your walk past a high-definition camera array down to the 3-second mark, that has to put immense physiological pressure on the human body.
Oh, absolutely.
Which leads directly into Module 4 and 5, the analysis of the physical tells that give these operatives away, the body language of espionage.
Right, because regardless of how highly trained or disciplined an operative might be, the autonomic nervous system is incredibly difficult to consciously suppress. When an individual is engaged in high-stakes, hostile intelligence gathering, their body reacts to the environmental stress.
The intelligence classifies these as high-stress behavioral indicators, and the most prominent physical tell logged is the tensed triad.
Yes, the tensed triad.
It is described as a 7-second period of fixed staring, characterized physically by wide, dilated eyes and a heavily clenched jaw. And thinking about this, it reminds me of trying to run a massive high-end video game on an old, outdated computer.
That's a great analogy.
Right. Like the internal fan spins up, the system overheats, and the machine starts physically vibrating. The operative's brain is processing camera angles, calculating guard rotation timings, and mapping escape routes simultaneously. That clenched jaw and those wide eyes, that is like a massive poker tell. It's the physical exhaust of a human brain running at 100% capacity.
The mechanism behind that physical exhaust is fascinating because the tensed triad is the direct physical manifestation of a massive cognitive load combined with sympathetic nervous system arousal.
So they literally can't help it.
Exactly. When an operative is staring at a reinforced compound wall, they aren't just looking at the masonry. They are mentally calculating height dimensions, estimating the physical time required to scale it, mapping the overlapping camera arcs, and memorizing the spatial layout.
All while trying to look normal.
Right, all while maintaining the outward illusion of a casual stroll. That intense calculation triggers an involuntary adrenaline spike. The eyes widen automatically to ingest more visual data from the environment, and the jaw clenches as a baseline stress response. That specific physiological state is wholly inconsistent with an innocent pedestrian just transiting a neighborhood.
The intelligence also maps out how multiple operatives move together. It details coordinated lead subordinate formations. So you might observe two individuals, appearing to be laborers or contractors, moving in a very tight, deliberate one-arm distance formation.
Working as a unit.
Yeah, and the critical tell here is the slowdown signal. It's a highly subtle hand gesture executed by the lead individual to incrementally decrease their pace the exact moment they reach a high-value choke point or surveillance zone. It allows the team to drastically increase their visual dwell time on a target without coming to a complete suspicious halt.
It is a meticulously practiced physical choreography. It is designed to extract maximum environmental data without breaking the baseline movement patterns of the surrounding area.
And they aren't just relying on memory either. The logs detail concealed recording methodologies. Like, an operative might hold their mobile device tilted laterally, tucked up discreetly under a shoulder bag.
Or they maintain a steady, flat-hand carry against their hip while walking.
Right, it allows them to record high-definition video of the securely layouts while keeping their arms in a natural resting position. And then there is the mention of tantric mudras, or thin air gestures.
Now, this is perhaps one of the most revealing behavioral markers. These are subtle, repetitive finger movements or hand gestures made completely in thin air, usually kept close to the body.
What are they doing with that?
Well, operatives use these fine motor movements as counting indicators or psychological anchoring behaviors. If an operative is calculating the exact number of seconds a pan-tilt-zoom camera faces away from a breach point, or counting the number of structural gaps in a perimeter wall, they cannot afford to look down at a phone or a physical counter.
Oh, because that would ruin their cover.
Exactly. So they offload that cognitive counting task to microscopic finger movements to maintain an uninterrupted visual fix on the target.
It paints a striking picture of a human being acting as a highly stressed, covert recording device. So what does this all mean for the people actually tasked with protecting these environments?
How do we fight back?
Yeah, how do we use this behavioral data? Because the intelligence finally pivots from pure observation to actionable response. It outlines tactical field matrices in Module 5 designed to actively dismantle this kind of threat architecture. And the core methodology is surprisingly simple. Taking away an operative's cover story is the absolute best defense.
The countermeasures detailed here are not reliant on building higher walls, deploying more cameras, or increasing the guard force.
It's not about hardware.
Not at all. They are entirely focused on psychological disruption. If the adversary's primary objective is to blend into the background and quietly extract 72 hours of clean, uninterrupted data, your defensive objective is to completely ruin their dataset.
So the protocols recommend establishing a zero-tolerance clear zone. This is a strict, actively enforced 5-meter radius around all primary vehicle gates and sensitive access points.
A literal hard line.
Right, and if anyone pauses for a so-called nuisance pretext, tying a shoe, spitting, looking lost, the security guards are instructed to engage the individual immediately. Not with aggression, but by politely and firmly asking their business and offering assistance.
By initiating that contact, the guard intentionally breaks the reconnaissance flow, because the operative relies entirely on that socially understood pause we discussed earlier.
The polite ignorance.
Right. The exact moment a guard speaks to them, it signals that the perimeter is under active, unpredictable human monitoring. The operative instantly knows they have been seen, their physical description and facial features are likely cataloged, and their camouflage is blown. That simple, polite interaction completely neutralizes the exploitation window.
The intel also mandates structural adjustments, like landscape thinning, aggressively cutting back the shrubs and foliage near compound walls to eliminate the physical and visual blind spots that those insider proxies rely on.
Taking away their cover.
Yeah. But the most effective tactic seems to be system rotations, actively changing the daily defensive patterns, varying the hours the canine units patrol the grounds, changing the specific locations where security and resident vehicles are parked, randomizing the guard patrol routes.
System rotations exploit the adversary's operational fatigue. I mean, think about it. If an intelligence team spends 72 hours meticulously mapping a property, timing the camera sweeps and guard movements down to the 3-second mark.
Like we saw in the logs.
Exactly. And then on day 4, the entire security layout has been rotated. Their gathered intelligence is instantly obsolete. It forces the surveillance team to start the high-stress, high-risk casing process all over again.
Which is exhausting.
Yes. And every time they're forced to recase a target, it drastically increases their operational exposure and the probability of them making a critical, observable mistake.
The intelligence even equips security teams with a field tracker of operational red flag profiles, for instance, static vehicles. Any vehicle loitering for over 3 minutes immediately gets its plates verified against a threat matrix.
Checking for known markers.
Right. The logs specifically highlight certain high-risk license plates repeatedly identified in casing operations, like those beginning with KL01CG7043 or KL07CU2185. Those indicate cross-regional operational mobility. But the human profiles are where it gets truly wild.
They are very specific.
They outline the disoriented camouflage profile, also called the turban camouflage in some contexts. This is an individual adopting the persona of a completely lost tourist or delivery driver. They might even hold a map or ask for directions. But while they act confused, their eyes are darting rapidly, maintaining highly structured tactical environmental awareness.
And the protocol for that profile is immediate engagement, escalation, and removal from the camera line of sight.
There's also the sales analyst profile. This is someone who approaches the property perimeter pretending to sell a product or service. Yet, during their pitch, they demonstrate significantly more interest in the CCTV placements, the gate locking mechanisms, and the guard deployment than they do in actually selling their goods.
They don't care about the sale.
No. And the response protocol is to unequivocally deny entry and alert mobile units to track their departure. In all these profiles, the defense relies on recognizing the moment the stated pretext completely fails to match the underlying physiological behavior.
It really is incredible how deep this behavioral mapping goes.
It really is. I mean, we started by looking at an innocent-seeming laborer spitting near a gate and a housekeeper spacing out while looking at a window latch. And what the security intelligence has shown us is that those tiny, easily dismissed moments can actually be the visible edge of a highly structured 72-hour intelligence-gathering operation.
Hiding in plain sight.
An operation betrayed only by microscopic physiological tells like a clenched jaw or a subtle counting gesture in thin air, and timings calculated down to the precise microsecond.
Yeah.
It really changes the way you look at the mundane world outside your window.
It absolutely should change your perspective. And before we conclude, I want to leave you with a conceptual leap to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, we've just spent this entire deep dive analyzing how meticulously our physical residential spaces can be mapped by adversaries. We see how they use disruptive pretexting and hidden domestic proxies to locate physical vulnerabilities in the real world.
Right.
But consider the modern equivalent. What if adversaries apply this exact same methodology to our digital lives?
Subtle way.
Think about it. They use mundane, seemingly innocent digital interactions, a random social media friend request from a mutual connection, a conveniently misdirected email with a benign attachment, or just a simple weather app tracking your location data to map our digital vulnerabilities, our blind spots, and our behavioral routines over a similar 72-hour period.
So the underlying strategy is identical.
Exactly. The question is, if they are casing our digital homes with the exact same precision and algorithms, would we even notice the digital equivalent of the tense triad staring back at us through the screen?
Wow. That is a truly chilling thought to leave on. The architecture of surveillance doesn't stop at the physical property line anymore. So next time you see someone lingering near your gate or tying their shoe just a little too slowly in your periphery, you might want to look a little closer at what they're actually doing. Stay curious, stay aware, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.